Someone riding? He's like short enough to be like, what is it, the dirty jockey?
Okay, guys. So I gotta sort of back off from the microphone here so that it's not so loud. But this last presentation for today is going to be about visual aids that you guys will be using for understanding architecture. Okay, and so there's a number of different sort of things that we use to look at that'll give you some sort of an understanding. So photographs, perspective drawings, site plans, floor plans, elevation, section, paraline drawings, which are three-dimensional drawings, bird's eye view drawings, massing diagrams, and details. All of those things are part of the tools that you guys will be using, in addition to a couple of field trips, and in addition to Google Earth, right, that you'll use to kind of analyze the architecture you're studying in this class. All right. So let's go into this. All right. So photograph, right? There is this. Believe it or not, this is a real building. This is not a rendering or something. See the cranes and the people down here lifting stuff up. Okay. So photographs are one great way of kind of getting this flattened view of a three-dimensional object or thing, and that's going to be one of the primary mediums that we'll be using when we're studying architecture in a PowerPoint format. Part of what I want to do with this course is to get you out on at least 3 field trips so that you're not just looking at flattened representations of three-dimensional things, you're actually walking through it. Okay? So the next type of drawing that you're likely to encounter is going to be some form of a perspective drawing. Now, perspectives they're similar to a photograph, but they're drawn by hand or by a computer. They're not a real image, they're a made-up image. And they can be both interior and exterior, okay? So typically, when somebody creates a perspective, with the exception of my students, they take a lot of careful thought of where they're taking the perspective drawing from. Okay, so the next type of drawing that becomes important for you guys to understand is a site drawing or a site plan. First of all, let's talk about what plan means. A plan view of something is a downward view. Okay, when we get to the notion of a floor plan, it becomes a little bit different, but a site plan is a downward view of the building's locations and the things that are around the building and other buildings that are adjacent to it. Okay? So it shows the overall kind of structure and layout of the things that create the setting for the building. Those become important things to look at. We looked at that three-dimensional diagram of the Acropolis, and we showed that, as you walked up to the Acropolis, first you went up these rampways and stairs, and then you entered through that sort of temple porch, and you were in a courtyard, and you would see the Parthenon off to your right, but you couldn't get to the Parthenon because you kind of walked in. That's kind of a three-dimensional view of the site plan. We could have shown you that same drawing as a site plan, and it would convey the same information, grouping of buildings and the pathways and things that are around it. Okay? Here's another example of a site plan. I'm not sure if this is, I don't know where this is. I'm not sure.
It's Washington, D.C.
Is it? I don't think so. No. Not the White House, for sure not. I mean, the middle building could be, the Capitol building, but I'm not positive it is. Yeah, it does. It does look like the Capitol building, but I don't know for sure. In either case, here you see a site plan. It's showing buildings and streets and walkways. It's showing paths. It's showing, trees, and it even shows cars.
The Sacramento?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It could be the Washington Mall. That now that I look at it, it could be. There is a fountain and a reflecting pond out in front of the Capitol building. And then that could be the Washington Mall. But I don't know. Either case, irrelevant. The point is, It's like you're in a helicopter looking down, but it's a drawing, okay? All right, next is this notion of a floor plan, okay? So floor plans are going to convey the relationship of the building to its immediate surroundings, like what's immediately around it, and it's going to show the relationship of the rooms and spaces that are in the building in a horizontal relationship to each other. This room, okay, is next to this corridor, and this room is across the corridor from that other room that we were in earlier, right? So it shows that relationship, horizontal relationships. By looking at a plan, you can obviously kind of navigate through a building. Now, this thing is saying that a building is usually a slice at 5 or 6 feet above the floor. That is not the way that I teach it. I teach it that it is a horizontal slice through a building approximately 4 feet above the finished floor. So, for example, we're sitting in this room. Look back at those cabinets that are there. See the cabinets? So those cabinets have a lower cabinet and a counter, right? Yes? And then there's a whole bunch of books sitting on that counter. And further up, there's a second set of cabinets, upper cabinets, right? So typically, if you cut the slice at about 4 feet, it's going to be above counter level. And it's an approximation. It's going to be above counter level, okay? But it's going to be below the level of things that are up above. And typically on a drawing, the things that are at the cutting line, so imagine if I took a big felt tip Sharpie and I measured up 4 feet and I drew a line all the way around this building. I wish I could do that. I'd love to do that. I know I'd piss someone off up in the deanery. Well, I'm just being malicious right now. But basically, when I made that cut through things, I wouldn't be cutting through that upper set of cabinets, right? So how do we know those upper cabinets are there in a plan? Things that are above the cutting plane are shown as a dotted line or a dashed line. The things that are at the cutting plane are shown with a really fat line, and the things that are below the cutting plane are shown with just a regular medium line. And I'll talk to you a little bit more about what is a floor plan and stuff. Okay? Any questions about that? All right, good. Here's a close-up example of the image we were just looking at a moment ago, or what we were talking about a moment ago. It shows kind of this house, and it's been cut through the middle, and the top's been lifted off, and you're sort of looking down. So in the plan view, this is the floor plan right here, right? You see the two-dimensional version. Here it is shown to you in a three-dimensional version, so you understand that it's a slice. The top's been pulled up. But the actual plan is two-dimensional, looking straight down. Okay? Here's another example of a floor plan. Elevations. So this is another type of drawing that you're going to encounter when kind of analyzing architecture. Elevations represent the vertical faces of a building, okay, viewed from a distance. So one of the things that becomes sometimes hard to see in an elevation is depth, because they're shown as a flat view of the whole site. So like, for example, in this building, right, if you were to look at the west elevation, that porch that's hanging out there would be shown kind of as a rectangle, and then the rest of the building would be shown as another rectangle. In the elevation, you would see them kind of flattened into one flat plane. The only way you could tell depth in an elevation is if somebody shadows the stuff. Okay? Here's another example of an elevation. This one does have shadows, and so if you look, I keep losing my mouse, but say you look right here, right? You see a shadow, and then you look at this is deep in shadow, and you see the shadow kind of cutting across here. It's not accurate. It wasn't drawn accurate. If it was, this line would be a straight line like that. But the shadowing is intended to show that this thing is in front of that, and that this notch is way back, and that this is next to it. Okay? So, all right, next type of drawing is called a sectional drawing. A sectional drawing is one where you slice through the building. Instead of slicing horizontally and looking down, now you take the building and you slice it vertically and you pull the end off and look in. And so right here you're seeing this little house, and they've chopped it in half with this cutting plane, and this is what's left is the section drawing, which is the part you see drawn there. And this is what the section drawing finally looks like. This is showing you the process of doing it. Sections can be taken either longitudinally or in cross-section, so they can go in either direction. This is the same house shown here being sliced down its length and then sliced across its side. Okay? So that is another kind of drawing that helps you to understand what the space is like. The sections can be two-dimensional. So what you're looking at in these sections, they're flat, right? There's no depth. Okay, but look at the next slide. The next slide is a sectional drawing, but it also has perspective introduced into it. Okay, so it is a two-dimensional section. This part up in the front is, but they've kind of added what you would see if you really did cut the building off and look inside. That is called a sectional drawing. Okay. Next one is a massing, and I'm showing you a sort of, I'm showing you like drawings of massing. Really, I'm going to try and replace these slides with images of models of massings, okay? Because models are one way of kind of understanding how big something might be next to something else and whether something is in front of another. But they're simplified. You notice that in these images that are being shown here, there is no detail. You don't see windows and people and flagpoles and all these other things. It's just kind of a block out of the overall form of the building. And that's what's meant by a massing model or a massing drawing. Okay? And those are going to be important things for you to be able to conceptually think of. When you think of a cathedral, when this presentation's over, I'll show you my favorite picture that I took this year in Florence. And it's a picture of Il Duomo. But when you think of it, you can start to kind of create this massing model in your mind of what the building is like. And it helps you to understand it. Okay? Almost done, guys. Almost done. All right. Paraline drawings. Paraline drawings are three-dimensional drawings, okay, that are usually measurable. Okay? Notice that these lines are parallel. They're not in perspective. They're not disappearing to a point. Okay? Paraline drawings are often analytical drawings. This is the Villa Savoie by an architect named Le Corbusier. He was, I believe, Swiss, but practiced in France. So, and what you're looking at here are, it's kind of a diagram, a Paraline drawing diagram of his 5 points of architecture. All right. So it's also showing the different levels of the building, the ground level, the piano nobile, or the base level where the garage and stuff is, and then the main living level, and then the roof terrace where the roof gardens are. And this particular Paraline drawing is an exploded Paraline, so that the pieces have been sort of separated from each other so you can see how they stack up. Okay? Sometimes also referred to as an exploded axonometric. All right? We talked about bird's eye views. Okay? And bird's eye views, this particular bird's eye view is a drawing. Okay? But nowadays, with people flying drones and airplanes and jets and everything else, right, you can get bird's eye views that are actual photographs. And bird's eye views sometimes are nice to look at. It's great to look at Google Earth because you're getting this photographic bird's eye view of different parts of the Earth without having to actually go there. Okay? And the last slide. The last element in that list of things that I gave you, detail. So oftentimes you will see architects producing drawings or photographs of small detailed pieces of the buildings. That's what creates the fine framework, right, of what a building is kind of made of. And so here you see, I think, a building by Louis Sullivan, and some details of a classic, looks like a mantelpiece. All right. In these particular things, there's symbolic meaning to the things that are being kind of used to ornate the building or decorate the building. Sometimes the details can have symbolism that's an obvious symbolism. Other times the symbolism is much more sort of hidden. All right. And I think that concludes that slide show. So I will stop it.